In St. Petersburg, a pool cage serves as a frontline hurricane shield. These are complex structural systems engineered for survival in high-wind environments. Building a proper coastal enclosure requires a specific budget. In this market, you should expect to pay between $12 and $25 per square foot. If you move 50 miles inland, that identical footprint often costs half as much to build. That price gap exists because the coastal microclimate will rapidly destroy standard building materials. A St. Pete enclosure has to survive Category 3 wind loads, intense ultraviolet radiation, and highly alkaline salt air blowing off the Gulf. Because of these factors, a cheap coastal screen is a myth. The local building laws and basic physics dictate the exact grade of materials a contractor must use. To see exactly where that money goes, we are going to build an enclosure from the concrete slab up, isolating the specific engineering choices that drive the final invoice. Reviewing this structural receipt is the only proven method to ensure your investment survives the next major storm. Legally, the state of Florida classifies a pool cage as a structural addition. That designation requires rigorous, site-specific engineering before any metal is cut. This map shows the Florida Building Code wind zones. St. Petersburg sits right on the coastal edge, placing it squarely in high-risk Zone 2 and 3. That specific classification mandates the use of thicker structural aluminum profiles to prevent the frame from buckling under pressure. It also requires the installation of K-braces. These angled aluminum supports are engineered to absorb and distribute lateral wind shear forces across the entire frame. To keep that frame grounded, engineers calculate denser, heavier anchor patterns. These bolts must be driven deep into the concrete footer to prevent severe uplift. All of this compliance carries hidden costs. You have to pay licensed structural engineers to draft the plans, and local municipalities to process the permits. Cut-rate contractors often omit this engineering phase, leaving you exposed to massive fines or forced demolition. This invisible layer of bureaucracy and foundational math is exactly why properly built coastal structures hold their ground in gale force winds. Beyond the threat of severe storms, the materials face a daily relentless attack from extreme heat, heavy UV exposure, and constant humidity. Unchecked UV radiation breaks down the chemical bonds of standard fiberglass mesh. Within years, the sun turns these panels brittle and prone to tearing. The most aggressive coastal threat, however, is the alkaline salt spray drifting inland from the Gulf and Tampa Bay. Watch what happens to standard steel. When salt moisture settles on untreated metal fasteners, it triggers rapid galvanic corrosion. To prevent this, structural codes require specialized, marine-grade, powder-coated hardware that resists oxidation. This means utilizing heavy-duty, corrosion-resistant brackets like this one to reinforce every critical angle. Properly fastening these upgraded extrusions together requires a highly labor-intensive process to ensure total structural continuity. Be highly skeptical of contractors who use thin floater beams. They do this to save on hardware and labor, but it severely weakens to build. Skimping on metallurgy and specialized fasteners causes the joints holding the entire expensive structure together to fail as corrosion takes hold. Once you factor in those strict engineering and material realities, we can look at the actual price tags in the St. Petersburg market and how they scale. This image shows a basic screened Lanais. Because it's relatively small, projects like this typically run between $6 and $13 per square foot, totaling roughly $1,200 to $3,000.
Lanais sit at the lower end of the pricing spectrum because they utilize the home's pre-existing roofline and concrete foundation. Now look at a standard 20 by 30 freestanding pool cage like this. The cost here jumps significantly, starting between $9,500 and $15,000. That price increase is driven entirely by the necessity of engineering a custom freestanding roof and integrating brand new concrete footers. When you move to multi-story or highly complex architectural enclosures, the engineering requirements multiply. At the peak of the market are luxury panoramic enclosures. These designs strip away the visual framing for an open view, but cost anywhere from $35,000 to over $50,000. These massive price jumps represent the exponential compound of wind load engineering required for every extra foot of height or missing support column. If you want an active defense mechanism for coastal living, High-end motorized retractable systems are the optimal solution. Their primary mechanical advantage is simple. By rolling the screens indoors when not in use, you cut UV and salt exposure to absolute zero. However, cheap off-brand motors will fail rapidly. Florida's humidity penetrates the casing and causes severe internal corrosion. You must use fully enclosed, weather-tested, certified motors, like those manufactured by Somfy or Phantom. These premium systems can also integrate automated wind sensor technology. This acts as a mechanical failsafe, automatically rolling the screens up during sudden coastal squalls. The reality is that these systems carry a steep premium. You should expect to pay $3,000 to $6,000 per single opening. That upfront cost is an active structural insurance policy that drastically extends the lifespan of both the mesh and the surrounding frame. A standard Florida cage typically lasts 7 to 10 years, while a premium build pushes past 15. Property owners who choose the lowest bidder consistently report the same issues, discovering rusted base plates and sagging splines just a few years after installation. Fighting the climate requires rigorous seasonal maintenance, starting with regular power washing to strip away accumulated mildew. You must inspect the cage after every major storm and immediately replace any rusted screws or bent aluminum supports. Ignoring a single ripped mesh panel creates a catastrophic domino effect during high winds, compromising large sections of the structure. Piecemeal repairs add up quickly. Simply replacing the mesh, known as rescreening, runs $1 to $1.65 per square foot. When it is time to replace the mesh, upgrading to heavy-duty Pfeiffer, PET, or solar screen mesh is a structural necessity to prevent future tearing. Do not attempt DIY structural repairs. They inevitably lead to uneven spline tension, bent rails, and severely compromised shear strength. When you factor in the future costs of demolition, permitting, and rebuilding, it is mathematically much cheaper to over-engineer the enclosure on day one. To achieve that level of engineering, you have to hire heavily licensed contractors who specialize exclusively in coastal Florida builds. Screen Factory Florida commits specifically to using heavy-gauge, powder-coated aluminum framing and strictly marine-grade hardware. Their team ensures total code compliance by managing all municipal permitting and site engineering while exclusively integrating certified Somfy motors. The result is a flawless, storm-ready architectural installation designed to handle the specific threats of the St. Petersburg coast. The company's official credentials are shown here. Stop risking your property with shaky builds and hidden maintenance costs. Contact Screen Factory Florida using the link below to get a lasting, hurricane-grade enclosure.